Close A statewide poll shows Fred Hubbell and Nate Boulton are leading the pack of Democratic candidates for governor heading into the June primary. Michael Zamora, Ms. Zamora, DMREG.com. Copyright 2018, Des Moines Register and Tribune Co. Fred Hubbell holds an 11 percentage point lead in a Democratic primary race that remains fluid about 2 weeks ahead of Election Day, a new Des Moines Register, Mediacom Iowa poll shows. Hubbell, a retired businessman, tops the pack of 6 Democrats, with 31% of likely primary voters saying they'd support him if the Democratic primary were held today. State Sen. Nate Boulton follows with 20%, and Kathy Glasson, a nurse and union leader, rounds out the top 3 at 13%. Eddie McGuire, a physician, John Norris, a former federal appointee, and Ross Wilburn, a former Iowa City mayor, fall well behind, earning single-digit support. 24% of respondents say they are unsure of whom to support or would not say. Despite Hubbell's 11-point lead, the June 5 primary race remains far from settled. Just under a quarter of likely primary voters say they've already voted or have made up their minds, while 75% say they could be persuaded to support somebody different. And the possibility of a nominating convention lingers. No candidate has cleared the 35% threshold needed to clinch the nomination outright on primary election day. The poll, conducted by Selzer & Co. of Des Moines, questioned 501 likely Democratic primary voters statewide May 13 to 15. It has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.4 percentage points. Quiz. Which gubernatorial candidate do you agree with most? The poll included Iowans who say they will definitely vote or have already voted early in the Democratic primary. Jennifer Duffy, a senior editor with the Cook Political Report who specializes in analyzing governors' races, said she's not surprised voters are still making up their minds because of the large field of candidates. And Hubbell's outsized television presence likely is fueling his lead, she said. The interesting thing about this race is there has yet to be a negative ad, she said. If somebody wants to displace Hubbell or try and keep Hubbell under 35%, they've got to start taking some shots at him. Boulton, Norris and Glasson all took their first public swings at Hubbell during a televised debate last week, challenging his record as interim director of the Iowa Department of Economic Development and the donations he's made to state rep. Peter County, a Republican and family friend of the Hubbells, the Democratic nominee will take on incumbent Republican Governor Kim Reynolds, who does not face a primary challenger. February Iowa poll showed her with a 49% favorability rating and a 47% job approval rating among likely 2018 voters. By photo. According to new Iowa poll results, Fred Hubbell and Nate Boulton are the most favored candidates in the Democratic primary for Iowa governor. Photo, Des Moines Register. Hubbell best suited to take on Reynolds. Hubbell support spans most demographic groups. Compared to Boulton, he leads with women by 14 percentage points and with men by 8 points. Those 65 and over, who make up almost a third of the primary electorate, support him nearly 3 to 1. He also leads, at least slightly, across educational backgrounds, income groups and in all 4 congressional districts. And more than 2 to 1 over Boulton, his closest challenger. Likely Democratic primary voters say they think Hubbell is best suited to take on Reynolds in November. By photo. Fred Hubbell, Democratic candidate for governor, Wednesday, May 9, 2018, in Des Moines. Photo, Michael Zamora. Michael Zamora, The Register. That's the most important thing, is they have to win the election, said Mary Hank, an independent voter who lives near Osage and plans to support Hubbell in June. Another indication of broad support for Hubbell, while supporters of each of the 6 candidates most commonly named their own choice as having the best shot to win in November, Hubbell ranks second among each candidate's supporters. Hank said she doesn't know anything about the other candidates in the race, but a friend recommended she vote for Hubbell. I've just been told by somebody that he is probably the most likely one to be able to win at this point, Hank said. He's got money to back himself up. And all his policies that I've heard, I agree with them. Judy Holland, a 70-year-old retired university support staff worker from Coralville, said she hasn't seen mail or television ads for anybody but Hubbell. She plans to vote for him in the primary. I just know he's good old Iowa name, she said. I know, the Hubbells are moneyed, but they seem level-headed and down-to-earth. Despite skepticism that a wealthy Des Moines businessman could win over rural voters, Hubbell carries that demographic as well. 37% of poll respondents who say they live in rural Iowa support Hubbell, compared with 16% for Bowleton. Each candidate in the race has taken pains to reach out to voters in more rural parts of the state, where the Democratic Party has struggled to gain traction in recent years. Since 2010, the party has lost 6 of 7 races for president, governor or U.S. senator. Across those 6 losses, the party won just 15 of Iowa's 99 counties. And party leaders and Democratic candidates have said winning back rural voters is critical to success. More on the candidates by photo B. More than 2-1 over Nate Bowleton, his closest challenger. Likely Democratic primary voters say they think Fred Hubbell is best suited to take on Iowa Gov. Kim Reynolds in November. Photo, Des Moines Register. Bowleton draws support from Bernie Sanders voter S.J. Ann Selzer, who conducted the Iowa poll, said Bowleton appears to be drawing some of the supporters who in 2016 flocked to U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders' progressive campaign for president, including younger voters, independents and those who cite no religious affiliation. 24% of voters younger than 45 say they support Bowleton, compared with 22% saying they support Glasson and 16% who support Hubbell. Bowleton's a young guy who brings a different kind of dimension in life to his politics, said Chris Woods, a 32-year-old grocery store manager from West Des Moines who said he was a Sanders supporter in 2016. He brings a vitality to the position, a different perspective, a connection with younger Iowans. While our population is aging and we are dealing with people flocking from rural life to urban life, you also have to be able to figure out how to retain people in our state, and having a young voice in leadership would help. Bowleton also draws more support than Hubbell from independent voters, 26% to 21%, and from those who describe their religious beliefs as none, 28% to 20%. Selzer said voters who don't identify with a religion are a growing demographic group in Iowa and played a role in helping hand Barack Obama a victory in 2012 over Mitt Romney, who led with Protestants and Catholics. When people were talking about Hispanics as a growing demographic group, this group has been growing faster, she said. And they tend to be the most liberal. Although Glasson has run a campaign that appears to more closely align with Sanders' agenda, Selzer said Bowleton likely is benefiting from higher name recognition. More Iowa poll. Autoplay show thumbnails show captions. Last slide. Next slide. Contested primary still a possibility, and nomination by convention remains a possibility as voters make their final decisions. With just over 2 weeks until the primary, majorities of likely voters are able to offer a favorable or unfavorable impression for only Hubbell and Bowleton. 52% of likely voters say they don't know enough to offer such an assessment of Glasson, and for McGuire, Norris and Wilburn, it's more than 60%. Deciding the nominee in a convention, however, would offer fresh hope. If it does go to a nominating convention, it's a whole different ballgame, said Duffy, the political analyst. Somebody like Kathy Glasson, her stock rises in that event and Hubbell's probably falls. That's because the nomination would be decided at a convention of party activists, people who tend to be more involved and more progressive, Duffy said. Glasson, who has focused on issues like universal health care and free community college, may see a bump in her numbers if that's the case. And Norris, who has been active in Iowa politics for decades, could benefit from his organizational knowledge. You could write him off in a primary, but I wouldn't write him off in a convention, Duffy said. More, Iowa poll, race is tight, unsettled in Democrats' 3rd Congressional District primary. About the poll. Iowa poll, conducted May 13 to 15 for the Des Moines Register and Mediacom by Selzer. Des Moines is based on telephone interviews with 501 Iowans ages 18 or older who say they will definitely vote or have already voted early in the Democratic primary this June. Interviewers with Quantel Research contacted 1,880 households with randomly selected landline and cell phone numbers supplied by Survey Sampling International. Interviews were administered in English. Responses were adjusted by agent sex to reflect the general population based on recent census data. Questions based on the subsample of 501 likely Democratic primary voters have a maximum margin of error of plus or minus 4.4 percentage points. This means that if this survey were repeated using the same questions and the same methodology, 19 times out of 20, the findings would not vary from the true population value by more than plus or minus 4.4 percentage points. Results based on smaller samples of respondents, such as by gender or age, have a larger margin of error. Publishing the copyright Iowa poll without credit to the Des Moines Register and Mediacom is prohibited. Reader share this story, https://dmreg.co/2ibuac